Hi, I'm Aaron Turner from One Thought. One Thought was founded to bring an understanding of state of mind to the mainstream and particularly to businesses. We're kicking off here at the beginning of 2021 after having had a very interesting year in 2020. And for the last 20 years, I've been pointing to the importance of our state of mind, the importance of our clarity of mind, not just what it is, but recognizing and adjusting for it. And in my opinion, we saw that all the way through 2020. So at the start of 2021, what are some tips for looking after your sanity and your clarity of mind as we move forward in 2021? The first tip is most people that I talk to are looking in a difficult direction that won't help in a number of ways. The first one is everybody wants to get in a clearer mind. How do I get out of stress? How do I get out of tension? How do I find my sanity? How do I get away from suffering? That makes sense because when you don't feel good or you can't think straight, the first thing you want is to cure that. The problem is it's a little bit running before you can walk. That's it. Maybe walking before you can crawl. And it seems really hard to most people to go from a stressed, distressed, unclear state of mind to a clear state of mind. And that's usually because they're missing a couple of things. So the first tip is try to get a sense of what's a clear mind and what's not. Forget trying to change it, right? That's down the line. What you'll notice is one of the main problems that people suffer from is they treat an unclear mind as if it's a clear mind. Another way of saying that, which you'll relate to if you think of friends of yours, is people are often crazier than they think. And in a way, it doesn't matter how unclear you are if you know it. Because if you have an unclear mind and you know it, you don't listen to yourself the same way as if you have an unclear mind and you think you're under something. Right? So that's the first tip. The first tip is let's get a little more astute about what our clarity of mind is. How do you do that? Well, the first thing is there's a tell. You know, we had poker night on New Year's Eve this year, and one of the things about playing people at poker is you don't know whether they're bluffing or not. And one of the ways you can know is they have a tell. And if you really know what someone's tell is, it's much easier to play them at poker because you have a better idea what's a bluff and what's for real, right? Now, when our state of mind gets unclear, it bluffs. It gives us lots of reasons why, even though we're stressed, we're thinking clearly. Even though we're hateful, we're thinking clearly. Even though we're freaked out, we're thinking clearly. And it uses the external world that we see when we're freaked out as a justification for how freaked out we are. It's a loop, right? And there's a single, unquestionable, 100% all the time reliable tell about your clarity of mind in. And that is, what is the quality of the emotion that you're in? Is it at ease? Is it conducive? Or does it have discomfort in it? Does it have an edge in it? Stress has an edge in it. Pressure at a point has an edge in it. Distress has an edge in it. Overwhelm has an edge in it. Something that makes you want to get out of it. So if you're in a state of mind where you're not feeling comfortable, where you're not feeling at ease, to the degree that you're not at ease, you're crazy, you're distorted, you're disturbed, you're unclear. Now, don't take my word for it. Here's tip 1B. Don't take my word for it. See if you can see it yourself. Like when I talk to groups, normally most of their regrets and complaints and mistakes fall into a situation where they thought they were in a clear mind. They trusted what they saw. They trusted what they were thinking, but they didn't feel good. They felt an edge. And if that's true, you'll start to see that pattern in your life, that when you feel at ease, even in the most difficult circumstances, you have thoughts and feelings that help you out because your mind is unobstructed, undisturbed, unoccluded. So number one tip for 2021 is start to see that the quality of your emotion, how disturbed or at ease your emotional state is, tells you how clear your mind is. Tip number 2, if that's true, you got to start to consider yourself untrustworthy when your mind's not clear. Because if you trust an untrustworthy mind, that way lies mistakes, regrets, and all the things we shoulda, coulda, woulda. Okay, so that's number two. Tip number two is start to see that your level of clarity determines how much you trust yourself. Now, interestingly enough, if you take those two tips, you'll start to have a healthier relationship with unclear minds, and you'll suffer less in the face of unclear minds because you don't lap it up. When your mind's giving you unclear thought and unclear perceptions, you don't just lap it up and move on. You're a little more discerning about it. Kind of like if you're drunk and you know you're drunk, you're not so out of control. Or if you're angry and you know you're angry, you're not so out of control. You still feel it, but you're not victimized by it in the same way. That's what we're looking for. So the first outcome of that will be that you're less victimized by your unclear states of mind. You have a bit more perspective in the face of them because you know there's something up with your clarity. And secondly, what you'll find is that you'll start to more naturally come out of it. Because it's one of the things that people don't appreciate is it's not hard to be in a clear state of mind. It's hard to avoid the temptation and the emotional impulse to jump into your unclear thinking and chew on it. And but for that, we naturally pop out of unclear states of mind. So the second symptom of the two tips I've given is that you might start to feel that you're more easily and naturally popping out of disturbed states of mind and having an easier time. And if you're not, go back to tip one. Instead of trying to get yourself out of it, start to see if you're trusting what you're thinking, you're trusting what you're feeling. And here's a good way to see that. If somebody asked you, why are you feeling that way? Can you explain it? And if you can explain it, how righteous are you about your explanation? So if you have some explanation for how you're feeling other than, oh, I'm not thinking clearly, my mind's disturbed, that might mean you're buying it. You're not seeing it as unclear thought, you're treating it as real. And if you can righteously justify why you feel that way, you're locking yourself into an unclear state of mind. And if you weren't doing that, you'd more naturally have distance, you'd more naturally pop out of it. So the third tip that I really want you guys to consider is, it's not difficult to have a clearer mind, no matter what the circumstance. It's difficult to see and appreciate that your mind's not clear. And when it's difficult to appreciate and see that your mind's not clear, it's difficult not to trust your unclear mind. That's the challenge. And my tip for the start of 2021, and we'll come back to this in different ways throughout the year, so that you'll just get more and more visible to this. And the more visible it becomes, the less tricky. And so you'll just start to find it easier more naturally. And that's my third tip is, start to look in the direction that I'm talking about. And if you can catch on to the way we trick ourselves into thinking an unclear mind is a clear mind, having a clear mind will get easier and easier throughout the year. I look forward to seeing you next time.